Dear Vice President of the European Parliament, ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, it is a great pleasure and a privilege to be in this distinguished company for the final session of ASEP 10, the 10th meeting of the Asia-Europe Parliamentary Partnership, which has been a very fruitful interparliamentary meeting, in the course of which we have, I think, announced our determination to have a contribution to dialogue and cooperation between our two continents. Our desire is to beef up, to step up interparliamentary cooperation as part of our multilateral environmental cooperation, in particular so that we can better tackle environmental problems and challenges which slow down development, which pose a threat to our health and which exacerbate inequality and poverty, and directly or indirectly pose a threat to our very survival and indeed the survival of our planet. These are matters which bear directly on ways of improving the living conditions of our citizens by means of economic development and by attaining the Sustainable Development Goals set out by the United Nations, by the UN. Now, I am convinced that we were right to place this emphasis on parliaments, on lawmaking and on parliamentary scrutiny when it comes to environmental issues, because there is globalization all around, and this has meant that we are interdependent in a way which has not been the case hitherto. We also set out our determination to create an ASEP-inspired mechanism, in other words, a permanent coordination committee, which would mean that we had more regular, more efficient parliamentary contacts as we approach the summit of heads of government between Asia and Europe. It's important for us to add further detail to specify the nature of our role when it comes to the ASEM conference itself. And I wish to state from this rostrum that Cyprus is prepared to play host to that particular instrument. In our three panels, in our three parallel meetings, we have been discussing the impact of climate change and the nature of the environmental challenges in terms of the economy, migration flows and security, areas where we are closely interdependent, and cause and effect are sometimes very difficult to disentangle. Ladies and gentlemen, 1 year ago, when I took on the chairmanship of the Standing Committee on Economy and Sustainable Development in the APA, in the Parliamentary Assembly, and the vice chairmanship of the Assembly itself, I set myself, among other goals, the role of stepping up, of enhancing the parliamentary dimension in the way that we address and tackle the environmental challenges and climate change. And within that context, we in Cyprus last June hosted colleagues from Asian parliaments, and at that time we underscored the importance of how we manage our energy resources and sustainable development, further enhancement of renewable energy sources, and also the need to promote ever closer cooperation between Asia and Europe in a very multi-layered way. We also called for the putting in place targeted action as part of an overall policy, and we need the necessary instruments if we're going to rise to our common challenges in the field of sustainable economic development. Now, we have had 7 resolutions in which we have highlighted the need for immediate decisions to be taken and actions to be set in store to address climate change and to mitigate the impact thereof as part of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals which were adopted by the General Assembly of the United Nations. And recently, Antonio Guterres, the Secretary General, underscored the fact that there is compatibility between parliamentary progress and action to address climate challenges. What we want to do at the end of the day is to prevent millions of avoidable deaths, and also the huge cost in terms of human lives, but also financial resources because of the natural disasters that we see every year. I'm very glad that it's a happy coincidence that my country of Cyprus is able to participate in these multilateral international actions involving the 2 continents. But as I say, we are prepared to make a further cooperation in order to improve and enhance the parliamentary dimension of Asia-Europe cooperation. And I believe that it's essential that we've got a reliable, credible partner on both sides, both within the partners within the European Union and also the Parliamentary Assembly itself, the Asia Parliamentary Assembly. You'll know that my country belongs in the general category of Western Asia under UN classifications. Now, I believe that with our resolution, we are going to pay due attention to the imminent ASEP conference, Asia-Europe, which is going to be held next month. Because at the end of the day, only by means of shared effort, a common endeavour, are we going to be able to put together concerted, targeted action to be sponsored by the governments of our various countries. And it's important that we do not allow the parliamentary dimension of that undertaking to escape from sight. That, I think, is one way that we can make our contribution to encouraging sustainability. It simply means pushing the environmental imperative higher up the political agenda. Now, this is not something which even our 2 continents alone would be able to address. These are global issues, but I believe that we can make a valuable contribution there too. Thank you very much.